Let's turn to Italy now, because the state funeral of Italy's former Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi is being held in Milan. Mr. Berlusconi died in hospital on Monday at the age of 86. The billionaire media tycoon died after being treated for a lung infection linked to chronic leukemia. Well, those were the pictures right at the start of the funeral as the coffin was brought in, and just the clapping from all of those people gathered both inside and outside the cathedral. I want to take you from those pictures at the start of the funeral to what is happening at the moment, because that funeral just coming to an end, and exactly like the beginning, with people there with their pictures of Silvio Berlusconi, family, friends, officials, all gathered there, and the clapping, just like we saw the pictures at the start, clapping the coffin out of the cathedral just as it was clapped in. And Sofia Batista is our Italy correspondent, is there watching those events. I mean, extraordinary pictures of those moments of all of those people there in the cathedral, outside of the cathedral, clapping in those moments.
That's right, you might be able to hear some of the clapping still happening all around me in Milan's main square. When Silvio Berlusconi's coffin arrived here outside of the Duomo, Milan's cathedral, people started clapping, chanting. I saw some people crying. You know, the atmosphere here is very emotional. As you were mentioning earlier, people are waving flags, some of them chanting, "Silvio will always be our president." Now, inside the cathedral, there's a state funeral where about 2,000 people are attending. Of course, Silvio Berlusconi's family with his 5 children, but also his girlfriend, who's 53 years younger than him, as well as his ex-girlfriend and his ex-wife. On top of that, political leaders, but interestingly, not many world leaders from outside of Italy. And that's because Silvio Berlusconi was a very controversial figure. He was loved by many, but equally despised by others who didn't like the fact that he constantly bent the rules and passed laws to try and help his own business in Italy. But you know, all of this is a bit of a spectacle as well. There's helicopters flying above us. You might be able to hear some of the chanting going on in the square. And as you probably can see behind me, that is in fact Silvio Berlusconi's coffin that has just been taken out of Milan Cathedral and being held by the Carabinieri, Italy's military police.
Sophia, Sophia, I just wonder if I can interrupt and just pause you for a second so our viewers can hear just the sound, because as that coffin came out, just the amount of cheering and applause there from all of those people gathered there waving flags. Well, extraordinary pictures there. And Sophia, let me bring you back in because we can hear some of those, what sounds like football chants. And of course, he used to own AC Milan. I mean, this is a city so deeply associated with Berlusconi, isn't it?
Actually, you were mentioning those chants. What people were saying was, there's only one president, Silvio Berlusconi, but in fairness, it did sound like a football chant. Now, this is an incredible moment, and, you know, just a reminder that this is it looks like a spectacle, but in fact, this is a state funeral, and today is a national day of mourning, which is something unprecedented in Italy for a former prime minister. And I think that this gives you an idea of just how significant Silvio Berlusconi was for Italians. He dominated society here for nearly 50 years, and not just politics, TV, cinema, sports, as you were mentioning, real estate, and you know, he was often considered the kingmaker of politics. He became Italy's longest-serving prime minister since World War II. And you know, he was famous for his charismatic personality, his sense of humor. He was a self-made man, and all those things. Because of all of those things, many Italians saw him as a man of the people. And of course, he was from Milan. This is where his career started. And clearly, the crowd who have come here today to say a final goodbye are very, very emotional.
And Sophia, exactly as you were saying, I mean, he straddled Italian politics for decades, didn't he? I mean, Italian politics is so fluid with so many changes of governments and coalitions around the world. A lot of those politicians will have gone by, not have registered perhaps, but everybody knew Berlusconi, didn't they?
Everybody knew Berlusconi, but you made a good point. Lots of very senior political leaders from Italy who attended the funeral, but very few world leaders apart from Viktor Orban, who's the Prime Minister of Hungary. And that's because, of course, Silvio Berlusconi was a very controversial figure. You know, he was famous for his crude and sexist jokes, his gaffes on the international stage, for example, when he called Barack Obama a very tanned man. He also had very questionable friendships, especially, you know, one example that comes to mind is Russia's Vladimir Putin. And also he became famous on the world stage because of his infamous bunga bunga sex parties. So for all of those reasons, some people here in Italy today actually feel that this spectacle, a state funeral, a national day of mourning, is too much, is not needed for somebody like Silvio Berlusconi. But all in all, I think it's fair to say that whether you liked him or you didn't like him, every Italian I spoke to today has said to me that an Italy without Silvio Berlusconi feels surreal, and that this truly does feel like the end of an era.
And Sophia, you were making the point about international leaders. In terms of Italian politics, domestic politics, those parties in opposition to him, were they there present at this state funeral?
Everybody was present, people, you know, from his coalition government, people from opposition parties, you know, allies, enemies in terms of politics. Everybody was here today. But interestingly, you mentioned politics. There are big questions being asked now about the future of the political party that Silvio Berlusconi created, Forza Italia. You know, can the party survive without Silvio Berlusconi? It would be very difficult to name a successor because, you know, so many people who voted for the party did so because they were Berlusconi loyalists. And, you know, Berlusconi being the ultimate populist, he never named a successor. Now, there's speculation that his eldest daughter, Marina, might become the next leader, but of course that's not confirmed. And one thing that is certain, if Forza Italia were to implode after Silvio Berlusconi's death, that would be a big problem for Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's coalition government. And of course, you know, Italy is a country that is no stranger to political crisis. So it's fair to say that Silvio Berlusconi's death could bring political instability to this country.